Often, drawings on the cave walls were highly stylized information, almost like signs in your terms in front of public buildings, portraying the type of animals and beings in a given area. These drawings later were used as models by your early cavemen in the historical times to which you usually refer. Their communicative abilities, and therefore creative abilities, were more vital, alive, and responsive than yours are. When you hear a word, you may be aware of a corresponding image in your mind. With these people, however, sounds automatically and instantly built up an amazing, vivid image that was not three-dimensional by any means, being internalized, but was far more vivid than your usual mental images indeed. Certain sounds, again, were utilized to indicate amazing distinctions in terms of size, shape, direction, and duration, both in space and time. Sounds automatically produce brilliant images, in other words. For this reason, there was an easy distinction between what was called inner sight and outer sight, and it was quite natural for them to close their eyes when seated in conversation in order to communicate more clearly, enjoying the ever-changing and immediate inner image that accompanied any verbal interchange. They learned quickly, and education was an exciting process because this multisensuous facility automatically impressed information upon them not simply through one sense channel at a time, but utilizing many simultaneously. For all this, however, and the immediacy of their perception, there was an inherent weakness. The inability to face up to violence and learn to conquer it meant, of course, that they were also severely hampering a certain thrusting out characteristic. Energy was blocked in these areas so that they actually lacked a forceful quality or sense of power. I do not necessarily mean physical power, however, but so much of their energy was used to avoid any meeting with violence that they were not able to channel ordinary aggressive feelings, for example, into other areas. I have been speaking about the Lemurians in some detail because they are a part of your psychic heritage. The other two civilizations were in many ways more successful, and yet the strong intent behind the Lemurians' experiment was extremely volatile. While they were not able to solve the problem of violence as they understood it in your reality, their passionate desire to do so still rings throughout your own psychic environment. Because of the true nature of time, the Lemurians still exist as they were in your terms. There are often bleed-throughs in the psychic atmosphere. These do not occur by chance, but when some kind of rapport causes effects to leap between systems that otherwise appear quite separated. And so there have been such bleed-throughs between your own civilization and the Lemurians. Various old religions picked up the idea of the Lemurians' fierce god figure, for example, in whom they managed to project their concepts of force, power, and violence, this god, who had meant to protect them when nonviolence would not allow them to protect themselves. There is a bleed-through now in the making, so to speak, in which the Lemurians' multidimensional concepts of art and communication will be glimpsed by your own people, but in a rudimentary form. Because of the nature of probabilities, there is also, of course, a system of reality in which the Lemurians succeeded in their experiment with nonviolence, and in which a completely different type of human being emerged. All of this may seem very strange to you simply because your concepts of existence are so specific and limiting. Ideas of probable realities and probable men and gods may strike some of you as quite absurd, and yet as you read this book you are but one of the probable yous. Other probable yous would not consider you real, of course, and some might indignantly question your existence. Nevertheless, the probable system of reality is not just a philosophical question. If you are interested in the nature of your own reality, then it becomes a highly personal and pertinent matter. As the various qualities of the Lemurians are still present in your psychic atmosphere, as their cities still coexist in land areas now called your own, so other probable identities coexist with the identities you now call your own. In the following chapter, we will discuss you and your probable selves. And that ends that chapter. Now to move on to chapter 16. It's called Probable Systems, Men, and Gods. In your daily life, at any given moment of your time, you have a multitudinous choice of actions, some trivial and some of utmost importance. You may, for example, sneeze or not sneeze, cough or not cough, walk to the window or the door, scratch your elbow, save a child from drowning, learn a lesson, commit suicide, harm another, or turn your cheek. It seems to you that reality is composed of those actions that you choose to take. Those that you choose to deny are ignored. The road not taken then seems to be a non-act, yet every thought is actualized and every possibility explored. Physical reality is constructed from what seems to be a series of physical acts. Since this is the usual criteria of reality for you, then non-physical acts usually escape your notice, discretion, and judgment. Let us take an example. You are reading this book when the telephone rings. A friend wants you to meet him at 5 o'clock. You stand considering. In your mind you see yourself, A, saying no and staying home, B, saying no and going somewhere else instead, C, saying yes and keeping the engagement. Now all of these possible actions have a reality at that point. They are all capable of being actualized in physical terms. Before you make your decision, each of these probable actions are equally valid. You choose one of these, and by your decision you make one event out of the three physical. This event is duly accepted as a portion of those serial happenings that compose your normal existence. The other probable actions, however, are as valid as they ever were, though you have not chosen to actualize them physically. They are carried out as effectively as the one you chose to accept. If there was a strong emotional charge behind one of the rejected probable actions, it may even have greater validity as an act than the one you chose. All actions are initially mental acts. This is the nature of reality. That sentence cannot be emphasized too thoroughly. All mental acts, therefore, are valid. They exist and cannot be negated. Because you do not accept them as physical events, you do not perceive their strength or durability. Your lack of perception cannot destroy their validity, however. If you wanted to be a doctor and are now in a different profession, then in some other probable reality, you are a doctor. If you have abilities that you are not using here, they are being used somewhere else. Now again, these ideas may seem impossibly rich for your mental blood because of your propensity towards serial thought and three-dimensional attitudes. Now these facts do not deny the validity of the soul, but instead add to it immeasurably. The soul can be described, for that matter, as a multidimensional infinite act, each minute probability being brought somewhere into actuality and existence, an infinite creative act that creates for itself infinite dimensions in which fulfillment is possible.